Greetings everyone, back in the R&D room. It's day 11. We're about to get defoliated in here, trellis put on, and ready to flip. I'm gonna show you guys how I get that done. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so we're back. It's day 11. I was kind of worried about these plants. Wasn't sure if they were going to be ready for me by day 12, ready to flip. You know, I like to flip fast. I like to keep production up. I like to make sure that we're on point. But you guys seen these plants when they went in here. If you've been following my shorts, I know I didn't make a video of the transplant, but we're gonna get everything ready in here right now and get everything nice and defoliated, de-leafed, and go ahead and put the trellis on, get everything ready to flip, and we'll talk a little bit about the parameters going on in this room, exactly what it is that we're going to be doing, what we're aiming for. We've got a couple of phenos over in the back there that we're hunting, bred in-house. So these crosses are actually a Push OG from about like 2005, crossed with a JBZ's wedding cake. Now, I had this Push, the Push OG I had for, I want to say a little more than a decade, and she started getting a little bit of genetic drift on me, and really just started reacting to stresses not too well. So what I went ahead and did is, before I killed her off and got rid of her in my stable because I loved that plant, I went ahead and reversed it and crossed it with JBZ's wedding cake. I had that wedding cake for quite a while. They're both very heavy smoke, very high yielders. They do take a little bit longer than nowadays, where everything else in this room is going to be running about 63 to 65 days or so. These run about 70, 72 days if you let them finish properly, both of the strains. But like I said, this is a pheno hunt, so I have no idea what I'm getting into. I popped 22 seeds. I actually popped 30, but only 22 sprouted. And out of those 22 seeds, I have, I want to say 11. I have 11 phenos that we're going to be hunting for. These were my two favorites out of the 11 that were left over. So I brought them to the R&D to really closely monitor them and make sure that they're not reacting any kind of weird way to the stresses that we're going to be putting on them, stuff like that. So, but you can see the structure on these things are fantastic. They're about a month old, so they're a little bit bigger than all of these girls, but they're about a month old from seed. I took a bunch of clones off of them early, probably about 2 weeks ago or so, and I have those at the main facility, and hopefully these things do something special and we'll have something new in the stable and bring some new flavors to my consumers. But yeah, everything's looking great in here. We have fantastic growth. I've been getting a couple of comments about if I ever get spider mites. Now, I posted a short the other day. The way we keep spider mites and pretty much all bugs and all funguses and all molds and everything out of our garden is just proper IPM, guys. So the way that I do my IPMs starts in my mom room. It really does. You got to stay on top of it. I choose to spray my plants twice a week, and that's pretty much all the way up until day 14 of flowering. And in the mom room gets sprayed twice a week. We alternate our pesticides. So I use Lost Coast Plant Therapy and Green Cleaner as my two alternating pesticides. And what I like to do is spray on Mondays and Fridays. So Mondays I'll spray one of those pesticides, and then come Friday I'll alternate and spray the other pesticides, whether or not I see bugs. Okay, that's the big deal. The whole point of IPM is staying proactive instead of being reactive. Because once you got bugs in your garden, then you're just in an uphill battle at that time. Okay, so as soon as we take our clones in our mom room, before they get plugged and put into domes, we dip them again. Okay, and then once again, when they come out of the domes, before they get transplanted into their final home, we go ahead and dip them in the alternate insecticide. So, you know, if you're dipping on Monday, if you're dipping, before we put them in the domes, if you're dipping the Lost Coast, then when they come out of the domes, you should be dipping into your grain cleaner. Now, these are just the pesticides that I use. You guys are welcome to use whatever it is that you have chosen to use in your garden, but I do recommend alternating, so that way whatever it is that you're battling doesn't build up a resistance and start having offspring that is also going to have that resistance. So just make sure that you are trying to alternate as much as possible, and just stay on top of your sprays, even if you don't see anything, even if your plants are perfectly healthy. Also, it's good to get these girls foliar fed. You know, the way we get this really good explosive growth is making sure that when these plants are young and don't have the roots in order to produce the vegetation that they are producing, that they have an adequate amount of supplemental nutrients getting foliar fed, because their stomata is the only way that they're going to be able to eat nutrients until they build up that root zone. And what I like to spray on my plants and give them a foliar feed is my A and B from Crop Salts. I add a little bit of liquid seaweed, and in particular, I use the liquid sea kelp from Blue Planet. Simple, pretty cheap. You can use whatever kelp or whatever seaweed you like. It's very good for root promotion and very good for nice lush vegetation. And second, I add fulvic acid, and my fulvic acid really helps these girls eat. They're able to really consume all of the nutrients that you're giving them, especially in the foliar feed, and it just makes them access all of those NPK macronutrients much easier. So before I keep dragging on, I'm gonna get this room defoliated. You guys can see what it looks like in here afterwards, and then we'll talk about our parameters going into week 1 of flower. We'll talk about our waterings. We'll talk about all that stuff. But let me go ahead and get started on this, and I will be right back. All right, guys, we're pretty much all stripped down, ready to go. Ready to get everything in the flower. I didn't get the trellis on quite yet, but I thought I'd just make you guys a video, because once I get the trellis on, everything gets a little obscured underneath the trellis. So, but I did leave you one plant here just to show you exactly what it is that I'm trying to achieve. So let's go ahead and go through and pull these leaves off here. So we're just going to take off these nodes that are really inside and down low, especially with this gorilla, because of the lateral branching on this plant. You really just want to get these little inners out of here, and then you're just going to come through and take off all, pretty much about 80 to 90% of these leaves here. So I'm going to come through, take this girl off, take this girl off, this girl, over here, a little in there. I think that's about it. And essentially what that's going to do for you is just let light penetration into all of these nodes that are in here. Give them a chance to go ahead and fill in the canopy. See exactly how all these girls are over here. Some a little more, some a little less. Our big lanky plants. So as far as topping goes, these Gorilla Glue number 4s are not going to get topped. Actually, let me go through the strains that are going to be in here. So those big phenos in the corner there are going to be the Push Cake. So that's the Push OG crossed with the wedding cake that I was talking about. And then we're going to have the Gorilla Glue number 4, all about half of this table. And then we're going to have some King Louis over in the back corner there. We're going to have Gelato 41s here, the E85, and then there's a couple of Skywalkers here that I don't think I threw up on the screen, but yeah, so multiple different strains in here. We're running 7 different strains, trying to figure out if they all work for our feed program, our irrigation program, see what's going to stay in the stable. Most of these are pretty tried and true. Our Gorilla Glue number 4, our Gelato 41. The 85 is a new strain. The King Louie I've ran once, and I have one in the flower room. Well, I have one table in the flower room at the big facility. So we're going to see exactly how that comes out. I did a tester run last run. There was about 3 plants in there. They came out good. I think I could do a little bit better with them. They didn't get since there was only 3 plants, they didn't get quite the adequate amount of light that I had wanted to. But for a tester run, just to make sure that we had, you know, the terpene profile, the structure, and everything that we're aiming for before I ran a whole table, just to make sure that they are the King Louie that we are looking for, the old school King Louie. So anyway, the reason why I brought that up, because those are OGs as well, and all those things stretch like crazy in the other room. So I did top one of them that kind of took off really fast. I topped that one plant there, and then the rest of them I'm going to top today. Skywalkers, you guys remember last run if you go watch my other videos, and those Skywalkers wound up getting all the way up to the light, no matter how much I super crop them, no matter how much I top them. So I topped these things super early, right after transplant, about 2 days after transplant, and you can see that they're already super lanky, wanting to just, you know, their internodal spacing's wacky. So what I went ahead and did again today is top all the new Mary stems that came out up on top. So there's about 4 or 5 different nodes that I just went ahead and chopped off. But what I like to do is most of my other strains. So anyways, going back to what I was saying real quick before we do get into that, is the Gorilla Glue number 4. So the Gorilla Glue number 4 is super lateral branching on this plant. So I do not top this plant. It doesn't grow very tall. It's very squat. And everybody that does top their plants, you know, the main reason why you're topping your plants is 1, to keep them short, and then 2, to promote growth in all of the lateral branches in order to fill your canopy in. So you can low stress train, you can do other methods, but topping is going to be the most effective way to keep your your vertical growth down and make your lateral growth expand, and also just help fill in that canopy. So what I like to do is, on most of the other strains that don't stretch ultra long like the OGs do, is I'll leave them fully on topped all the way up until the night before flower. So today is the day we're gonna go ahead and flower. So basically what I'm gonna come through and do is come here, and then I'm just gonna yank these off. Oop, I dropped that. We're just gonna go ahead and pull these off right here. You don't need to be super accurate, because I honestly I'm not worried about this being a main cola anymore. I'm really just trying to focus all of my energy. So you're gonna have something like that afterwards. You know, after doing this for many years, you kind of get the feel of exactly where it needs to be pulled. You can use scissors if you like, you know, if you want to be a little more precise, but you can see here, see that there's 2 nodes, 2 tops that are going to pop out right there. And yeah, so I'm just going to go through and do that on pretty much every other plant in here except for the Gorilla Glue number 4. And also I did top the 2 push cakes back there because, like I said, these things are a month old from seed, so they're super overgrown. And one thing about that strain, from growing it over the years, both of the strains, both the wedding cake and the push, is they stretch like crazy, and they just are very vertically inclined to grow. Yeah, I might have said that fucked up, but whatever. You guys know what I mean. They want to grow very vertical. They don't have a lot of very much lateral branching. So I topped those things a couple times already, especially when I went ahead and took clones. And I think I honestly might take clones off of like that branch there, and that branch there, just one more of each, just to kind of even out the canopy on those things. So the lineage on those two plants, the Push OG was bred in about 2001 with the original Purple Kush and the Pure Kush from I can't exactly remember who the breeder was of the Pure Kush, but an unknown breeder of the original Purple Kush. Both of those strains are either not around or very hard to find nowadays. So that's one reason why I did not want to get rid of it. So, and that's why we called it the Push, because of the Purple Kush and the Pure Kush, and it yielded, you know what I mean? So we were able to push it out very fast. And then JBZ's Wedding Cake, you know? So those two crosses, both of them are very heavy, like mouthfeel on the smoke. And the good thing is the Wedding Cake has a little bit of color to it, and the Push has the lineage for a little bit of color to it. And if you look up close, there's already a little bit of purple striations inside of some of the fan leaves on that one, and that's a good sign. Hopefully we can get some color out of these things. You know, the market, everybody loves color, so that's kind of what we're doing, is just trying to hunt. You know, I'm trying to just bring new flavors to the market instead of growing exactly what everybody else is growing. You know, that's kind of the only way to make some movement in and be able to bring something new to the table for your customers and for your clients and for myself. You know, I'm a smoker as well. I love to try new flavors, and these were two great flavors that I grew for many years that I really loved, and I've had these seeds in the freezer for probably about, I want to say about 5 or 6 years now, and I went ahead and just popped them just because I've been wanting to do a pheno hunt, and it's been so long since I've actually popped seeds. I've usually just been running genetics that are tried and true, because it takes so long. You know what I mean? I popped these seeds over a month ago, and I still have to flip 11 of these strains at least 2 to 3 times to find exactly what genetics that I want to keep. You know what I mean? So it's going to take like a year before any of these get selected and any of these get to market, and that's the pain of breeding. So that's why I really don't do it. Okay, so anyway, so for veg, 85 degrees, 75% relative humidity all the way through. We try to feed them about 4 times a day, really just keeping that root zone saturated, really getting them a fresh batch of food every 3 to 4 hours, and just really pumping these things vegetative cues, and just letting them know, hey, grow some roots out, you got as much food as you need, you got as much light as you need, all that good stuff. And some people were questioning the height on my lights. So these lights, it's about a 6-foot gap between the table and the lights here. So the reason why they're so high right now is because when you're vegging, you don't need very much PPFD. About anywhere between 400 to 600 PPFD, and you're golden. These Lux put out a crazy amount of PPFD. I can't even run these things at 100% when I'm vegging, and they're this high. So these things were at 50% for the first 3 to 4 days, and then as soon as I seen the plants starting to stack nodes, I went ahead and turned them up to 80%, and they've been rocking at 80%, and everything in here is super happy, super healthy. There's nothing that's growing lanky that isn't just a lanky strain, no matter how much light you put it under, i.e. the Skywalker, i.e. the King Louis. So 85 degrees, 75% humidity. If you have a PPFD meter, you know, that'd be great. Check your parameters on your par and make sure that you're in range. If not, you kind of just gotta get a feel for the plants and see exactly what it is that they're wanting. If they're wanting more or less light, and that's just experience and time that's going to give that to you. So rock that all the way through veg. This is 11 days, so tomorrow they're going to get their first night of 12-12. and we should be able to get the trellis on, fill out this canopy, get everything bumping in here. After everything gets topped, parameters are going to go ahead and change at that point. Oh, also for beds we're running about 800 ppm, so double your ambient air of CO2. Now that we're switching over to flower, temperatures are going to drop down to about 83 degrees. Humidity is going to stay steady, about 65-70%, and just kind of still stay in that VPD range in order to keep those cues going, that everything is happy and healthy, and just keep those stomatas under control, not opening too much, not closing too much, and just make sure that your transpiration rates are on point so that way growth is optimal. PPMs on the CO2 is going to go up to 900. And now we are going to start sending generative cues with our irrigation. So instead of constantly getting water throughout the day, we're going to bring these plants up to field saturation relatively early in the day, about 2 hours after lights come on. I want to get them up to field capacity within the first 2 hours of lights on. And then we're just going to give them a big dry back overnight. So last run, what I was trying to do was bring them up to field capacity over a longer period of time. So it was taking me about 4 hours to get them up to field capacity. I just wanted to see exactly what was going to happen if we gave them a little bit more dry back, and not really bring them completely up to field capacity till later on in the day. But what I noticed is that my EC was spiking pretty significantly high, and that was causing the pH to drop inside of my blocks. Now my runoff was coming out 5.6, 5.7, but inside the blocks, because the EC was so high from that stacking process, it really tanked the pH, you know. So in order to try and maintain, we still want to stack our EC early in these first 3 weeks, but in order to maintain that EC and that pH a little bit better, I'm going to bring them up to field capacity a little bit earlier in the day to really make sure that they're getting that adequate amount of watering early, so that way they're not getting these dry backs in between your P1. You're going to be getting these weird dry backs that are just going to not make everything optimal for growth. So again, guys, R&D room, we're trying a couple different things, trying to time exactly what it is that we need to do for our waterings to bring the expressions out in these girls, to initiate flower earlier in the cycle, to put on bulk earlier in the cycle, to be able to finish earlier in the cycle when it comes to ripening and those steering properties at the end of the run. So that's pretty much all that is going to be going on for week 1. Right now, like I said, we're going to cut back the waterings just a little bit, and just give them one P1, no P2s, and let them drop all the way back to 0 for our P3, and then just restart the cycle. And I'm just going to keep a really close eye, and monitor the EC and the pH on the runoff coming out these girls. Our inputs are going to be about 2.6 EC going in, about 5.8 to 6.0 of pH. I'm going to run my pH a little bit higher this time. Last one, it never got above 5.8. So this time I'm going to run a little bit higher on the range, 5.8, 6.1, in hopes that with these big dry backs, that fresh P1 saturation in the beginning of the watering cycle is going to really be able to balance that EC inside the block, and balance my runoff, and just keep these things really happy. So yeah, let's keep an eye on this. If you guys have any questions, any comments, if I missed anything, I know there was a couple more things I was going to talk about. For those of you guys that made it to the end, I appreciate it, all you guys. If you can, like, subscribe, shoot a comment down in the vid, and let me know if there's anything that you need me to make a video on. I'll either make a short about it if it's not too deep of a question, or I'll go ahead and make a full-length video. So yeah, but appreciate all you guys. Happy farming. Happy 4th of July. I hope you guys had a safe, happy weekend, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Hopefully we can get a video this week inside the big facility. We got everything's pretty nice over there. We're like week 6 of flower. Everything looks fantastic. So we'll get some, maybe we'll get some night shots and get you guys some updates over there. But happy farming. Talk to you later. Peace.